Jabroni, Jabronixyz, oh, it doesn't matter, you spell jabroni.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new episode of Two Jabronis with a Wrestling Podcast. BJ Cruz here with my tag team partner, Randy Orton's biggest fan, the incomparable Jeremy Los. Jay, what's up, dude?
I didn't know this. I didn't realize this day was going to come. I really am Randy Orton's biggest fan right now. I cannot stop raving about the work that he's doing. Though I could live without him punting Christian, because that was a little terrifying for me.
It was brutal. It was awesome, but it was fucking brutal.
And I think I tweeted this out yesterday during Raw. This is top 3 work for me when it comes to Randy Orton's career, and he has a legendary career. This is
18 years.
How well he's doing.
It's
just
very
incredible. Good. Considering last year he was fully coasting, and I thought like he was a waste of space, to be honest with you, and now he is making a name for himself again and really becoming the top draw in the company, and it's crazy.
It's wild to think about, and I think he was super genuine when he looked up, called out Edge, and said thank you. I think there's obviously him staying in character, and saying I sent you home to your wife, tore your tricep clean off the bone, all that stuff. I do think that there was some truth there, that he was thanking his real life friend for bringing out just a monster in him, or the Viper, I guess you could say.
He brought the Viper out. The Legend Killer is back, and this is the best character that he has. The Legend Killer. I love it.
Oh, it's so good. Another thing that's so good that we love is our friends over at Blue Wire, our podcast home. We are also brought to you by our friends over at BetOnline.ag.
So, okay, hold on one second. We need to talk about BetOnline right now, because this weekend I got myself into a little bit of trouble.
But before the ad read, okay, I want to hear
the
this.
ad read. We'll jump into this now.
Yeah,
I found virtual blackjack on BetOnline over the weekend, and I texted you, and I texted our buddy Nick.
That is right. Yeah,
and I had just a roller coaster of a day playing blackjack, to the point where my wife was like just giving me the death stare.
Yeah,
because I was gambling. Like, I got down to. I lost all my money. So, like, let's just cut to the chase here. I lost all my money.
Yes.
But at the very end, I was betting like 50 cents a hand and like getting pumped up that I was winning.
Yeah. Naturally.
So, yeah, I mean, I was like, I'm still alive. And I was like getting all excited. And she's like, calm down. You're winning 50 cents. But she didn't realize that the long game here, that I was at one point down to $2, worked my way back up to $55, and then lost it all.
Oh, well, see, yeah, you need to stop. At least you should have stopped when you were up. I don't know what you're doing, but that's a great plug for BetOnline early before the ad read, by the way. Which
I'm just doing my part as a company man here.
Yeah, you are
losing all my money.
You need to be able to speak about the product that we promote. You don't want to talk about stuff you've never used. So shout out BetOnline.ag. Thanks for always sponsoring the show. Don't forget to subscribe to our show, by the way, wherever you download your podcasts. And if you're one of our fantastic Apple Podcast users, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And if you're feeling spicy, leave a review. And if you're listening to us or want to listen to us on Spotify, hit us with that follow. It's like Twitter or Instagram.
Hit us with that follow. Follow us on Twitter too, because we have a pretty dope Twitter account.
We do, Jay. Tell them about it. Where can they find us?
You can follow us at Two Jabronis Pod on Twitter and on Instagram and in the BR app. You can follow me personally at Jeremy A. Loss, and you can follow Ben at Cruise Control. That's Control with a K. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's a red button right here.
I figured it out.
If you like looking at
I'm on the same side every week, so it's right here.
Yeah, if you like looking at our faces and that sweet Kofi Mania shirt that Ben has on right now, subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Respect to the champ.
Yeah, and then you get to see my lovely bedroom and all its glory. So subscribe to that YouTube channel.
Absolutely. All right, we have a very, very special guest on today, which just a heads up. I recorded this earlier today. And if you're listening to a show that we dropped a day early because my conversation with Alex McCarthy of talkSPORT was that good. Jay, you had a previous engagement, so which is totally cool. He missed you though. You have a fellow Lakers fan in Alex McCarthy across the pond, which is
gotta love it.
I know, a man after your own heart. He was also wearing an Allen Iverson jersey during the interview, which was just an excellent choice for doing a podcast, any type of podcast interview, but especially our show. Allen Iverson can do no wrong in my eyes, probably
except for the step over. That's the only thing I don't like Allen Iverson about. But Iverson is.
You might be a little conflicted. Legend. If it was another team, I think you would have loved every second of that.
Oh yeah, I would have had that poster on my wall if it was any other team than the Lakers.
Absolutely.
Iconic moment.
So it's
Ty Lue, that's up there with his championship. Ty Lue is a championship winning coach, and the step over is just on par with it.
It's right there, yeah. But before we throw to our good friend Alex McCarthy of talkSPORT, let's talk about our friends over at betonline.ag. Let's pay those bills, Jay. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's no shortage of action going on at our exclusive partners, betonline.ag. Sports are slowly making their way back, and BetOnline is leading the way with the best odds and lines for all UFC, NASCAR, boxing, and soccer matches. Premier League is back today if you're listening to this on Wednesday. So hit up betonline.ag to bet on the Premier League. And if you need even more, they have simulated NFL, NBA, and UFC simulations all day, every day, live on their website.
Looking for something else other than sports? BetOnline has hundreds of casino games, as we talked about earlier, poker tournaments, and prop bets to check out. Visit betonline.ag and use promo code BLUEWIRE for a free welcome bonus. That's one word, BLUEWIRE. BetOnline, your online wagering experts. All right, enough introductory banter that we do every week. It's time to go to our special guest, Alex McCarthy, and he is, of course, the main event. And for this week's main event, we'd like to welcome back a great friend of the show and a friend to all of you if you follow his wrestling coverage on talkSPORT. If you don't follow his wrestling coverage on talkSPORT, not only are you missing out on a great friendship and fantastic coverage of everything professional wrestling, you are also a big jabroni. To further prove my point, here's a quick rundown of people he's talked to recently. Brody Lee, Mandy Rose, the newly returned Christian, which we'll talk about a little bit later, Jon Moxley, and Drew McIntyre. Go check those out on his YouTube channel if you haven't already. He is on my current Mount Rushmore of wrestling media personalities, and just a shade below The Rock on my Mount Rushmore of wrestling overall. Please welcome to the show, the legend himself, talkSPORT's Alex McCarthy. Alex, welcome back to Two Jabronis with a Wrestling Podcast.
Brother, what an intro. What an intro, man. You fit the rock in, you've got my plugs, you got it all.
I'm trying to learn something, in this whole podcast thing. We've been locked up in the house, so all I've been doing is practicing my guest intros, just to random, in the mirror to my wife and my daughter who are sick of me. So, but again, thank you so much for coming on. How's everything going with you, and how are you holding up in this quarantine era of life and wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, for you, man, I'll always come on. You know the deal.
I appreciate that.
Man, I'm very, like we were just discussing before we come on air, right? It's been a sucky time for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I've been kind of fortunate in a lot of way, obviously, that wrestling is one of the only things that hasn't subsided.
Right.
So for me, I've stayed busy, and the interviews have kept rolling in. On top of the names that you just rattled off, I think things I'm putting up on my YouTube channel in the coming weeks include Eric Bischoff.
Oh, there we go.
Who did I speak to last week, man? They all meshed together. That's going to bug me.
This just proves my point of your greatness, though. It's just there's so many that, you just got everyone stay tuned. He's going to drop them, and you're going to be...
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. It's been great, man. I've been talking to a lot of people lately, and interviews have been flowing in thick and fast. I mean, even last week, some that do come to mind, I've just been on conference calls with Shawn Michaels and Drew McIntyre.
Right.
That was cool. Drew is a guy that I've quite an open dialogue with anyway.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing I'd say for anyone who doesn't really realise in the States, that like with a lot of us UK journalists, he's just super open and cool. Like, you can shoot him a message anytime and he always hits you back. So
that's awesome.
Pretty cool to think the WWE champion will do that, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's just been great. I've had a great run of interviews, and although, you know, it's not the greatest time to brag. It's a sucky time, but for me, like, and my radio show too, it's just been really cool. The only thing last week, so I was on a call with Randy Orton and I didn't actually get to speak to him. You may have seen me being very upset about this on Twitter, because I'd never had the chance, right? So that kind of sucked. But I think we're going to try and get it going again with WWE. But I did speak to, I've just looked it up now because I couldn't help myself.
Yeah.
I did Nia Jax, and I did speak to
excellent.
Mick Foley, which was another kind of career highlight one. I'd never dug that out. So that was really cool.
Man, that's, again, just if you haven't subscribed to his YouTube channel, please do that now. Hit pause on this podcast and go do that. But
hit me on Twitter, man. I love engaging with good fans.
Absolutely, follow him.
That's one of my favorite things.
Absolutely. So I've got it. Speaking of Twitter, I got to take a second here and put you over, because I just noticed that you have over 10,000 followers on Twitter now.
It's grown since we last spoke, right?
Right. So I remember when I first followed you, and this is before you were on the show the first time. I want to say, I think I just followed you when you're like right under 1,000 followers. So to literally have 10 times that amount now is an incredible feat. So congratulations. It's very, very well deserved. As I mentioned earlier, your coverage is absolutely fantastic. I feel like one of those indie wrestling fans who like watched you in a smaller arena and now you're main eventing WrestleMania. You know, it's do you ever have those moments sitting there thinking, man, people really want to hear or read what I have to say? Because I have those moments all the time on obviously a much smaller scale than you. I can only imagine what it must be like to just kind of be at that level now.
Yeah, I guess it's still a climb. Like, you look at other people, like I think Sean Ross Sapp is kind of over 50, and Ryan's over 75, maybe something like that. So it's still kind of humble beginnings. But for a UK wrestling journalist, for sure, it's a real nice kind of acknowledgement that you're doing some right things. Not only, I obviously take great pride and integrity in my coverage, but I like to be a fan too, and talk to people about what's going on, and I try and give people a little bit of everything, I guess. When we first started engaging was kind of shortly after maybe my Triple H interview.
Yes,
and that was so I basically had to start my Twitter account again, because it just I had like a fairly decent, maybe 4,000, and then it just went weird and I couldn't follow anyone and no one was following me, and it just like locked out. Don't know why.
Oh no.
And I contacted Twitter so much, and I was like, oh man, can we just get this fixed? And it just didn't work. So I think February 2019 I started again.
Right.
So this account's only like maybe 18 months old, and I was like, look, I'm just gonna, and before that I'd done lots of different things with my accounts. That's another thing about social media, right? Like, it's hard to command an audience if you're trying to be everything.
Right.
Like, I'd be tweeting about, we were talking about basketball, or I'd be tweeting about football or UFC, where I kind of centralize it, and I'm like, this is a wrestling hub.
Yeah.
But that Triple H interview was where it really jumped off. Well, I think I gained about 2,000 followers in like 2 days, with like people jumping on that, and then it just kind of carries on. I feel like I'm very consistent. Like, I'm always churning out stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like that kind of always gives you the little bumps, I guess.
No, totally. And I guess one litmus test for if once you've made it is the amount of trolley responses you get and the weirdos that are just like sliding in the DMs. Do you are those types of messages in the mix now, or are you still?
Man. Yeah, you know it. Listen, I mean, I'm another thing, big proponent for is so my partner has battled depression, and she has mental health issues, and we've been battling them together. Obviously, right by her side, we've got children. She's had them before we even had kids, so 5 years or so. So it's very kind of close to my heart that if anyone ever needs to reach out or want to have, it's just someone to talk to. It might not mean anything, but it might mean everything. You never know.
Yeah.
So I leave my DMs open for that purpose, and I sporadically let people know it's fine. You ever want to talk, inbox me. Of course, there are people that just take advantage of that, and they're like, oh, so or whatever. They drop you weird messages like, I've had loads of people who just like want my number. They're like, we can just be friends, and I'm like, that's weird. You shouldn't have to ask. See, if you have to ask to be friends, then you're not friends. Like, that's weird.
It's not kindergarten anymore.
Yeah, it's like, we would exchange numbers if we were going to do something or whatever. But if you have to say, please give me a number, that's a bit weird.
Yeah.
So it was just, you get things like that all the time. And as far as trolls go, I mean, I think the main one I get is being a WWE shill. That's for some reason that's a common term these days. Ryan Satin gets it all the time too. And it's like, I don't mind that much. It did bother me at first, to be honest. Like when the first couple of times you get it, I think what? But the more I realise, I'm just an upbeat kind of positive wrestling fan anyway. That's the way I like to. It'd be weird to give so much energy to something and hate it or want to break it down all the time. That's weird to me. So I like to try and see the positive sides and support the people in the industry that I love. And I've just come to accept, I don't really care if people want to make me a shit out of that. I give the exact same praise and attention to AEW, and all the good things that they do, and cover their events with the same sort of meticulous nature and whatnot. So it's cool. Like even Tony Khan, it was very cool that we had a bit of a dialogue and he let me break the story that Fyter Fest was going to be in the UK. So I don't really, I think people just have to understand sometimes, and I'm sure you'll be able to relate to this in your previous lines of work. Whether people like it or not, WWE is the biggest player in town, right? So as far as my job goes, it's going to get the most clicks and traction. Therefore, it's going to get most of my attention. I don't think there's any shame in a journalist saying that. But like I said, a big fan of AEW too and what they do, and I do watch New Japan when it comes to G1s and the Wrestle Kingdom when it comes around and stuff. But it's just my bread and butter would be WWE and AEW, I guess. So,
no, yeah,
I don't know.
We get that too. That the one-star review that we have on this podcast, which I will never let go, is they said they basically called us WWE shills. And if anything, Jeremy and I we take our fair amount of pot shots at WWE because sometimes the product just it hasn't lived up to the standards that we have set, which may be too high sometimes, but we're critical when we need to be critical. We praise when we need to praise. So that's just people, I guess, is just they hear what they want to hear.
That's what I mean. And it's like when you do criticize it, and then you inevitably you can't satisfy everyone, right? So there's going to be people in your comments going, "Whoa, that's a bit of a weird shot to take away." Like last night, I was like, "The Precious Peach is a bit of a whack nickname." For Mandy Rose,
yeah.
I've never heard of a serious contender being referred to as the Precious Peach.
Right.
That's, what is the connotation involved there?
Yeah.
It's fine for Otis to say it. I'm not saying that anything against that. It's just don't bill her as that.
Right.
Come on. And then there's people going, well, Otis. I was like, come on. So, there's always going to be someone saying something. But I think that's one of the lessons that I've learned with social media, really. I'm going to emit, hopefully, good energy and positive stuff and give people mildly expert opinions where I can. But, hopefully you attract the people for the energy that you give off. That's what I hope.
No, totally. And that's one of the things I love about your coverage, too, is just you get the sense that you're also a fan, which we all are, right? Whether we are kind of doing this, we have this avenue or this platform to break it down. We all started loving this universe that just kind of removed us from the regular world.
And you like other sport, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What other sports do you do?
You're wearing an Allen Iverson jersey, which I commented on when we first hopped on. The NBA is that's my bread and butter. That's what I grew up watching. So that came before WWE, when I was a little kid.
And what I'm saying about that, so the same with football here, even to keep it with, NBA, if Woj was I'm a big Sixers guy, do you know what I mean? It's not the same. For some reason, for journalists, it's been that way in most sports. For their integrity's sake, they're just very vanilla, down the middle, straight characters who just basically present the news. But in wrestling, it's kind of different because it is different. It's not a sport per se, like the rest of them. So I feel like it's fine to kind of infuse your personality and your passion into the business that way because it is different.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that's what makes you still good at your job is you're still a fan. You haven't removed that part of that.
I hate to interrupt. Who do you support in the NBA?
I'm a Warriors fan.
Oh man, I'm Lakers.
Oh, that's okay. You're from overseas. I can I can forgive that. Yeah, no, I live in the Bay Area, so just kind of had to watch, not had to, but watching their rise from kind of a bottom feeder team to where they are. I mean, they were another bottom feeder team this year.
Where they were, yeah. I mean, for me, it was the reverse.
Right.
I was like, I grew up on Kobe, and then okay, we got LeBron now and AD, but like the 5-6 years before that, man, were terrible. Like I'm sitting there thinking, what's going on?
We Jeremy couldn't be here today, but we got to get you two. He's a massive Lakers fan. He grew up in SoCal, so you guys will have a lot of great conversations about the
that.
Lakers.
Was my first job in the industry, was an NBA writer.
Really? Oh,
yeah,
that's awesome.
The company I worked for had they were basically the official UK partner of the NBA, and they were looking for staff writers, and there I had.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, if this NBA season does happen, I think your squad's got a legitimate shot at another title. So crossing my fingers for you. So 2020 as a whole has been a really bizarre year to put it lightly. Where did you rank Randy Orton becoming the best thing going on in WWE on your list of things that were likely to happen?
Listen, I'm one of the few people that have always kind of been a proponent of Randy Orton. I love him. I think I get it that like his wrestling style for a lot of people in 2020 is maybe not as exciting, right?
Sure.
There's a lot of, I can imagine you watching an AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan at breakneck pace, the match they had at SmackDown was amazing.
Incredible.
And Orton's more meticulous, and he's more about his expressions and the story that he's telling in the match. And that's the other thing. When you say stories told in wrestling, I think a lot of fans or people in general kind of mistake what that means. And they'll be like, oh, he worked the leg. Okay, yes, that's one part of how you might tell a story in a wrestling match. But there's a lot about reactions and the emotion and stuff that you emit that then sort of helps translate to the story they're trying to tell. So I think Orton is so good at those things. His timing.
Yep.
He's just a joy. If you know wrestling, Orton's a joy to watch. And I've always said, and I actually said it today on Twitter, him in that lunatic role is just so good. It always has been.
Yeah.
It always has been. When he was RKOing and punting Stephanie McMahon back in the day and things, I think about 2009. Awesome stuff.
Yep.
It really was. And it felt like for the past few years, maybe he's just drifted. I think especially from the Bray Wyatt storyline leading into Mania 33 to now.
Yeah.
Save for maybe the Jeff Hardy Hell in a Cell deal. Hard to kind of say what he's done.
Right.
Like you'd be hard pressed to go, yeah, he did this, this, and this. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's kind of it's passed people by. So I'm so happy that you can just tell that when he's in a role that he enjoys and cares about, he's so much better. So yeah, man, I'm totally here for it, and I'm very interested to see what they do. I mean, I think logically, it looks like Christian's going to factor into the story, but I'd like to see he's the top heel and Drew's the top champ. That could be the deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's kind of climbed. I mean, if there's a ladder, so to speak, he's absolutely climbed to that point. And you're right. There's probably going to be a Christian match in there somewhere, which I'll get to in a little bit. Before we do, I did want to touch on Orton and Edge because I mean that was a fantastic match that they had at Backlash. I'm just wondering, have you heard if there was any other rationale other than needing to draw people to watch Backlash behind labeling it the greatest wrestling match ever? Because it was a fantastic match, and I think without the label, people would have been raving about it much more than they are now. I mean, there's that praise that's out there, but it almost set an impossible bar for those two guys kind of from the get-go.
Yeah, it was pretty unobtainable, really, to have, even objectively speaking, to have the greatest wrestling match ever. What criteria? It's because it's such a subjective sport.
Yep.
Or industry. It's very hard to say definitively what is the greatest ever because it's different interpretation for everyone. Having said that, I don't think anyone can really say it wasn't a great match. Man, it had a bit of everything and a bit of storytelling. The performances were great. I loved the whole finisher sequence, and actually the commentators did a great job of making it relevant, because if I'd watched that and they hadn't really spelled it out for me, I don't know if it would have clicked for me. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So that was cool. What's interesting is that Edge and Orton, neither of them wanted the tag. Neither of them pitched that, right?
Yeah.
Vince McMahon idea, him and Heyman come up with it at the time, and for them to execute it the way they did is pretty incredible. I think for WWE, they just want to monopolize. If you type in the greatest wrestling match ever on Google, there it is. You know, it's going to be, whether it is or not, there it is. And I think as well, to draw viewers, I was interested just how they were going to do it. Are they going to, WWE has this habit sometimes of promoting things that don't actually happen.
Sure.
And I thought it was going to be like a real swerve where maybe Orton, just in his proper heel way, would just put the boots to the match and swerve it. But
right.
I'm glad that they actually did go for it, and I think people were just interested to see if they could live up to it or not, and that was a draw within itself, rather than actually promising the greatest match ever. It's like, can it be?
Right.
And that puts them under that pressure. The things I heard about it, going into the match, I knew the day of that Edge. Well, you may or may not have seen. I was told that. I was told that Edge had torn his tricep.
Oh.
So I knew that news was coming. But I also had heard that the match was going to be great. So I was immediately kind of like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I was looking for almost where Edge got injured, but it wasn't obvious to me at the time.
I was also looking at it really closely, and I even watched it again. I couldn't pinpoint the exact time. I know that I forgot where I read this. It was probably from you, but that I think it was taped in 2 segments, the match.
Yeah,
and then he hurt himself in the seconds, so he hurt himself in the second part. I just still couldn't pinpoint it. Rewatching it. I mean, it sucks.
I mean,
but
it does suck. I mean, you got to put yourself in Edge's mental space. He's battled that hard to come back, and the source who told me, he was like, don't feel too sorry for him. He's getting probably like $5 million a year, and he's done, 3 matches.
Yeah.
But still, it sucks, and he wants to rewrite his story. Probably not going to see him till Rumble time now. So it'd be very interesting to see where we get from there.
So now, last night, Randy and Christian faced off. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember you tweeting a while back that you were a big Christian fan. And the reason why this stands out to me is because I feel like, despite the calls for him to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, I was the only big Christian stan out there. Like, I would, whenever a video game would come out, I would be Christian to kind of climb his way to become WWE champion. So you can imagine how excited I was that he was going to be back in that spot.
Right.
What are you hearing about his return? I mean, how regularly will he be on TV, or is this kind of a replacement since Edge's injury took place? Like, how does that all fit in?
What's interesting is I spoke to Christian maybe a month ago,
right?
And I said to him, any desire to come back, or at least seek the relevant medical test to see if it's possible, at least explore it. It was like, no, not really. Very happy with my career. No desire to get back into it. I think the actual quote was, no desire to dip my toe back in. And then I followed that question up with saying, but I thought it would have made the world of sense if he was involved in the build to Edge and Orton, which obviously involved Beth Phoenix.
Yep.
And I was like, well, it would have been cool if it then went up a gear the next week with yourself. And he said again, well, there wasn't, because I can't physically get involved, we didn't really see, there wasn't anything for us to go on, so we didn't bother. I said, okay, well, fine. And then I get the message, to be fully transparent, the first thing I see about it is WrestleVotes. They tweet that there's going to be a surprise, and they had some lyrics from his theme song on it. So immediately, of course, I reached out to people and I was like,
great
what's
theme.
the deal with it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so the guy told me, he full on told me the finish and everything. He was like, he's going to get low blowed, then he's going to get punted. I was like, whoa, like Christian's going to get punted? What? Thinking from no contact to that. So I knew that was going to go down. And obviously, like I said, I tweeted out saying, sure, you better tune in to catch it.
Yep.
From what I'm hearing, it's not a one and done, but I don't know if it's a full return either. So he got cleared enough to do what he did.
Right.
But it's not as if they wanted to do more and settled for that. That's just what they wanted for that night. So I think the aim moving forward will be that Christian has a match. And it kind of does further the story of Edge, because I also believe the plan is to finish off what he started with Randy when he does get back.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if I want Edge and Orton at next Mania, just because there's a litany of guys I'd love to see with Edge. That's got nothing to do with anything else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nothing to do with Orton or Christian or anything. I'd love to see Edge work a lot of different guys, but I don't think Christian's ever. He might come back and do a few spots here or there. And of course, the gimmick with Christian is one more match. So, let's see. But all signs are pointing to that. Yes, that it was essentially a taster.
Well, it was a great taster. The punt just sounded so brutal, and I know it's probably amplified a little bit because there's not as big of a crowd. But to watch him take it, knowing I think also in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, this dude suffered from concussions and kind of had a little bit of an injury history, so that probably added into the emotional aspect of it. But it was a fantastic way to at least sort of, like, as he kind of alluded to when he talked to you, dipped his toe back in the water, and that's a hell of a way to dip your toe back in. Yeah,
exactly. And like what you said, me and you are both big fans of him, but even in the segments and of as a worker, but even in the segments that he had last night on Raw, I just felt he's just such an entertaining person, and he talks so well. Even when him and Edge and Christian were first tag team around, in 99-01,
yeah,
I always thought Christian was just so funny, like so entertaining. I even when they split and he was like doing his heel thing on Raw, I just loved him. I always thought he was underappreciated, and that's the thing, isn't it? You always gravitate to the guys who you think deserve more.
Yeah. I mean, from the Brood days, he just kind of always stood out. Like, oh, he's gonna be, obviously Edge was. I think they
because Edge is like 6'4",
right? They talked about this on their podcast when they were doing it, that Gangrel was kind of brought in to groom Edge to be like the next guy, and Christian was just kind of along for the ride, and he kind of rose up with him. But I'm glad Christian's starting to get his due, basically.
Do you know what? I'm glad that people were excited for him to return. It would have sucked if it was just a bit like, I'm glad that it was a big deal.
Absolutely. Speaking of big deals, unfortunately, so last night it was reported that there was a developmental talent who tested positive for COVID-19, and they were present at NXT's taping. I believe it was last Tuesday, the 9th. Even worse, some of the wrestlers and employees in WWE found out about it on social media, which is a huge bummer. Which, with what about kind of how they've been treating the virus in general, like, do you think they were treating this situation almost as inevitable and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it type situation?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's like people were saying, they haven't tested anyone until today. Or they've kind of been getting by with temperature checks, and Triple H talked about how they coated the Performance Center and the trucks in this special resistant thing that would kill the virus on site, or any virus. Like, I don't know the ins and outs of that, but that's what he said. So they took as many precautions as they thought they could, and I think because nobody had popped a test, that they just kind of thought, oh well, this is going fine, and they probably thought they were going to get away with it. But I mean, you can't just do temperature checks really, because the symptoms sometimes for people don't even show for days,
right?
Or at all in some cases. So I think the fact that they weren't doing tests, people like doing tests every show, they should have done that. Probably should have. And the fact that they, all of a sudden, right, they needed to do tests. This is the thing. Triple H was like, there's a lot of tests out there that aren't that accurate. That's true. Even here in the UK, my father-in-law got a test at his job that said he was positive. And then he went to a test, took a real test, not positive. So, they say, it's about 30% accurate, whatever.
Right.
So I understand the trepidation and probably money that comes along with that. But at the end of the day, there shouldn't be an expense. You shouldn't run the show if that's the case,
exactly.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
So the fact that they can all of a sudden, somebody test positive, like, oh, actually, we can test everyone. We do have the means to test them. That's kind of lame. They obviously could have done it all along. That's kind of annoying to me. Like you said, though, one of the worst things is letting everyone find out on social media.
Oh.
They should have the wrestlers fully informed, all the time, up to date, rules and regulations, dangers. These people have got families, man. You can't run it that way. And I'm not a negative guy, but I felt the need to tweet those things earlier today too. Not having masks in the audience. Again, people are like, okay, well, it would muffle them, or they wouldn't be able to be a real audience. Well, then I don't have an audience then. They're taking risks that aren't necessary at this point.
Yeah.
So let's just hope that all the tests today come back cool. And then they know now, they've learned lessons. Because, again, this is a pandemic is not something that most of us, I certainly haven't, have worked through in our lifetime.
Yeah.
So I guess, hindsight is great, and we should do everything to be safe. But as long as we learn lessons and hopefully no one gets hurt, I can't say more than that.
No, absolutely. So Raw's been happening, SmackDown's been happening, NXT. NXT UK has not been happening. It's been on somewhat of a hiatus. Are you hearing anything about those shows starting back up soon, or at the very least, a Walter appearance maybe in NXT to resume that feud with Finn Balor?
I mean, the travel restrictions are still kind of so I think that's the problem. I know Pete Dunne was right in the middle of getting his visa sorted out when all this happened, and he had to come back and to England, and he's with his he's got a young family, right? He's got a child who's, I think, under 2.
Yeah.
So it's affected everyone in that regard. In fact, the day before the travel restrictions came down, Drew was here in the UK doing media, and I was set to meet up and talk with him, and then they had to literally pull him out. And they were like, "Oh, well, because he has to be at Mania,
right?
He's the main event." So they literally flew him home straight away. And then sure as you can expect, the next day they were like, "Yep, all travel restrictions in place." So
Jeez.
I think, as far as NXT UK goes, obviously the takeover I think is now in October. That's their lead-in. They're hoping to run some shows before that.
Yep.
So they're looking at late August, September. But it's speculative at the moment. I don't have a destination. They cancelled the Glasgow tapings, which were going to be in July.
Okay.
So if the window is August, basically, and then a bit of September, that's what they need to get their tapings done. I don't think they'll do what NXT have done and use the British Performance Centre. I don't think.
Okay.
Not ruling it out.
Right.
But there's been no talk about it at the moment. I know I've spoken to several of them. I know they're itching. And they're doing online seminars together with various people around WWE, like Johnny Marston, etc. But that's all they got at the moment. So there's no movement at this second, but I know that they're itching, and I know Triple H is willing to make a move as soon as humanly possible. No,
that absolutely makes sense. Something it
is worth noting, on that the UK is gradually opening up.
Right. Yeah. We were talking about that before we started recording, that that is just happening over there. And I mean, I'm in California, and that's started just to happen here as well. So, I guess it's as always with this, it's just a kind of a wait and see situation. Something interesting you wrote today was that Vince is very, very high on Angel Garza, even going so far as to compare him to a young Eddie Guerrero, which, wow. Huge praise. I also think he's fantastic. Easy to see why Vince has taken a liking to him. I mean, do you think he's leapfrogged Andrade kind of on the pecking order on Raw? And if so, why do you think that is? It's been pretty quick for all that to happen. Yeah.
So for me, the main thing with Vince, of course, is being able to sell a story and being a larger-than-life superstar. And you'd have to be blind to not think that Angel Garza has, in-your-face, up-to-his-eyeball charisma. He is dripping with charisma.
Yeah.
I've never known someone to just whip his trousers off. And how am I so entertained by that? I don't know, but I am. And he's great in the ring. He put on clinics with Lio Rush in NXT, and he's been great in the main roster. And I think that he has outshone Andrade in the charisma stakes, which, whether we like them or not, I think appeals more to Vince, right? So it's
sure.
And it's not to say it's not important to be a great worker, because it is, but if you stack Andrade and Garza side by side, it's not Andrade is probably better in the ring, but Garza is still great.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then you look at charisma, and there's a big disparity. And that's not Andrade's fault, because the language barrier is still kind of there for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Garza has stolen the march. the reason I reported this today, I was just talking to my source last night. We were talking about Christian and all things like that, and we were just kind of talking about other stuff. And he when he said that, I said, whoa. Vince actually said that. Like that's what makes it newsworthy. He actually compared someone to Eddie Guerrero. That's a huge thing to do. And just great for me to imagine that Vince has Eddie Guerrero as like a bar. That's great too.
Yeah.
So I said to him, I'm gonna have to run with that. And he said he did say in the same breath that he's called on Andrade. Vince has, but I don't really like to report those things. It's cool. Like, anyone who listens to this, fine. But I mean, I wouldn't like headline something because Vince McMahon call on this superstar. Imagine you're Andrade and you open that up.
Yeah,
that sucks.
That would suck.
Who does that news serve? Like, it might be useful when I'm explaining something that happens later on down the line, maybe. But I always hate those reports that like preempt stuff like that. I just think it sucks. Like, I didn't like it when Meltzer said that Cedric Alexander was getting buried. Now, granted that Cedric Alexander hasn't gone on to have a starring role, really. He's in a tag team with Ricochet. But it's not as if he wasn't really doing much before to what he is. Do you know what I mean? Like from what he was doing to what he is now, I wouldn't go as far as to say he was buried. He just hasn't really risen from his spot. So I feel like people read that stuff and it's kind of your duty. I'd rather put out positive stuff than negative. That's the bottom line. But to circle back to your question, I do think Garza is immensely talented. I'm a very big fan of his.
Yes.
The way he carries himself, like this Lothario, and he has all this brimming confidence who can back it up in the ring. I can dig that. I really can. I think people do too.
Oh, I could dig it too because he has more charisma in his pinky than I've ever had my entire life. So I just envy guys who kind of have that swagger. I've got to get an AEW question here for the haters who think all Jeremy and I like is WWE. When do you see Young Bucks FTR happening? Do you think it could headline All Out, or are they going to milk it all the way there?
Yeah, I don't think it happens before All Out, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think something as long in the works as that. I know, and I've spoken to Revival and Young Bucks before, and they are big fans of each other. It's something they've wanted for a long time.
Right.
It's going to get the platform it deserves. Now, bear this in mind with FTR. What they wanted in WWE was a showcase, was to be featured, was for tag team wrestling to be taken seriously.
Right.
You best believe they haven't gone to AEW about those kind of guarantees about what this match and the significance of working with the Young Bucks would be. I believe if it's not main event, it will be like a 30-minute, maybe more, absolute showcase. So, best believe that the first time they tear it up, it's going to be big. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was, one of three, or they extend it out from there. But I think they will build the anticipation for that first meeting for sure. It's a money match.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean the thought of them when they first appeared, you knew it was going to happen, but even just that visual of them in the ring together was just kind of surreal because it's been building for so long, just kind of on the internet, right? And just to kind of have it.
And I think the thing with AEW as well is that they haven't, they've made the right pickups from WWE thus far.
Yes.
I think the only one who hasn't hit was Shawn Spears, but other than that, Puck, sensational. Obviously, it's
incredible.
a shame he's got the same travel problems at the moment as Pete Dunne, as I alluded to earlier. So there's a lot going on in terms of now that they've left WWE, right? So we're looking at Rusev, Heath Slater, Zack Ryder, and I don't think AEW are actually going to pull the trigger up, but they might do on Rusev. But I think the Revival was a great pickup, and thus far, I don't feel like it's what TNA suffered from at some point, where it was just like diluted with anyone who leaves WWE. I feel like AEW has done a good job of comprising their roster at the moment.
Man, I hope they pick up Rusev. I'm a huge Rusev fan.
Me too.
And it was just super bummed that they couldn't find the right thing for him.
I feel like Impact just took a stab in the dark with that video, if I'm honest.
Yeah, they just kind of put everyone on there, right? They were just like,
so I actually spoke to it on the PRs, and they were like, yeah, it's got people talking. I was like, yeah. I mean, only if you have a payoff, really. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I hope. Yeah, for their sake, I hope they deliver on at least some of it. Okay,
someone would be good. Yes.
just one, just at least one. So I'll get you out of here on this question. Something I've always been curious about with your coverage. is, do you sleep? Because sometimes I'll see you live tweeting like a Raw or a pay-per-view event, knowing full well it's very late where you are in the UK, or it's early in the morning. And I know you have kids too. Like, are you just the best time manager in the world, or are you secretly like Gangrel and a vampire where you don't need sleep?
I mean, so like for instance today, I stay up and cover the pay-per-views anyway as like part of the job. So that's kind of like my shift that I'm on the Sunday or Saturday, whatever it may be. Last night, because it was my day off after the pay-per-view, the Monday. So I basically slept like a lot of the day. So I was very awake at night, and obviously I heard all this Christian news, and I was like, oh, I'm going to stay up and see this. And then after that, I'm laying there and I'm thinking, man, I wish I was asleep. And I had to be up early for work, so that sucked. But I guess like kids help in a weird way. Like they've kind of adjusted me and my night habits. I've got two girls in a room together, and they rarely have a night where it's just nothing. Right? Rarely. Rarely that's serenity. So I think that's kind of played a role, if anything. It sometimes though, man, it's tiring, no doubt. Especially when so sometimes I'll cover. It wasn't that long ago. I can't remember what pay-per-view it was. It might have been the one between Mania, but there was a UFC card and then a WWE card the next night. And it was like, so I did those two late, and then I think on Tuesday I was back at it on like 9 a.m. and like your sleep patterns just all over the place. It's the same when I come to the States and cover events and then come home, and my missus is like, well, the kids are yours now, and I'm like, oh man, I'm so tired. So I think I've just got used to it. It's going to be weird when I don't have to worry about that so much anymore. But that's the other thing we were talking about earlier of engagement and stuff and Twitter. I feel like if I wake up the next day and tweet about an event, it's not nearly as impactful. So you have to kind of take that into account too.
No, for sure. I mean, the kids thing again. We talked about this before we hopped on. I completely feel you on that. They're like alarm clocks that you never set. They're just because they're so on like an internal clock that they'll get you up no matter how tired you are.
Oh yeah. Well, what time does yours get you up in the morning at the moment?
She floats between 6 and 6:30 in the morning.
Is she able to open her door yet?
Oh, no. She's like 17 months. So she's in the crib. So once she wakes up, the only way she can get out is either my wife or I get her. So you just wake up to a crying baby, and she'll just keep going until one of us gets her. So,
she won't give up.
No.
That's like my eldest, it would be anywhere between 6:30 and 7. And she'll come into the bedroom, and she always wants to get in bed with me. And she'll be like, Daddy, can I go on your phone? And I'll be like, yeah, because I just want to I just want to doze for like another half an hour.
Yeah.
And she because she's 4, so she'll play like Mario Kart on my phone and things like that. And I let her have half an hour of that, and I kind of just lay there. I'm like, okay, now we've got to get up. Because the other one then stirs.
That sounds fantastic. I can't wait till she can use my phone and not just like lock it after failing to unlock it for a couple of attempts.
Don't let people tell you it's a bad thing, right? In small doses, it's a lifesaver. I'm telling you.
Exactly. Those 30 minutes are actually super, super key for the rest of your day. So this is great parenting tips from you, by the way. I really appreciate this.
Yeah. Like today, my partner took my kids out to her mum's because they have like a little swimming pool, and now you can do. So the rules in the UK now that you can 2 houses can mingle. Essentially. Okay. 2 households.
Yeah.
So when she did that, and it was my lunchtime, you best believe I had a nap.
Yeah, there you
I had
go.
a full-on nap. I set my alarm and said, I'm having an hour, and that's that. I was tired.
That's super, super clutch. Well, Alex, you've been so generous with your time. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Tell the people where they can find your work and where they can find you on social. Just the red carpet out for you.
It's Alex M_talksport, and you can find that on both Twitter and Instagram. Although my Instagram really is just my kids, so don't probably. It'll be boring for you. But you can hit me up at Twitter. Of course, I've got my show every Sunday in the UK, which is 9 to 11 UK time. We have great guests, great insight. So it's very, very cool. And of course, talksportonline.com. That would be where you can find my exclusives and my interviews and stories, which seem to have been doing great lately. So very happy. Big Ben, when are you gonna call into my show, man?
Oh, dude, I have the talkSPORT app on my phone just to listen to your guys' show. So I got to do it. I've got to I just got to call
Like,
it.
I'll tell you what we'll do. Like, we'll get a Skype. You give me your Skype handle, and we'll call you, and we'll hook it up that way.
Done. Absolutely. Consider it done, my friend.
Consider it your first booking.
Yeah, there you go. I really, really appreciate it, man. And again, get some rest. I know it's a little later over there. And thank you again for coming on the show. You're the friggin' best.
Anytime, brother. I always love it.
All right, dude. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, man.
Wow. Fantastic chat with our boy, Alex McCarthy, Jeremy's new best friend because they're Lakers fans. But look, as I said during the interview, if you're not following Alex at this point, do you even watch wrestling? And it's so bizarre because he's so plugged in, he's so knowledgeable, and again, I just love the way that he covers wrestling in general because it's with a more positive spin, and like I get how people can get. It's easy. I guess it's also the internet. People get pissed off at everything, right? But
we're just like that. We get pissed off about everything too. So it's like,
and we do try to keep it in like a positive spin. We are much more of a couple of negative people than Alex is, but he I think he covers it right down the middle. Does an excellent job, and again, super plugged in and in the know with everything in the world of professional wrestling. That's going to be it for this week. We'll be back on Friday night. Probably the episode will be dropping either late Friday night or Saturday, depending on SmackDown's happenings and goings. But in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you download your podcasts. And if you're one of our fantastic Apple Podcast users, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And as always, if you're feeling spicy, leave a review. And our Spotify
one
people...
1 or 5 stars.
1 or 5 stars.
5 stars.
That's it. 1 or 5. Hopefully 5. Because 1, you're just kind of a miserable person if you're leaving a 1-star review on a free podcast. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can I say that?
If you're leaving a 2-star, you're going to get these hands.
Yeah. One hand a star, basically. If you're a Spotify person, hit us with that follow. We know a lot of you are on there as well, so we didn't want to exclude our Spotify people. So follow away.
Yeah, and follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel. It's 2 Jabronis with the Wrestling Podcast. Follow us on social at 2 Jabronis Pod on Instagram, on Twitter, and in the BR app. We're still going for that belt. I don't know when we're gonna get that belt, but I want it.
Yes, it's we're scoping it out. I like to see how people do on the app, but we're just waiting in the wings. Basically, we're gonna come in hard one day during one pay-per-view, RKO out of nowhere, just like Randy Orton, and snag the title and then never let it go. So
we're gonna cash in that Money in the Bank.
Sort of, except no briefcase. So everyone in the BR app who's listening, you've been warned. We also love you for listening to the show.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
with that,
and also make sure you follow us.
Sorry.
You can follow me at Jeremy A. Loss. You can follow Ben at Cruise Control. That's Control with a K. We are going to put up a Twitter poll on Thursday for our Friday show. We're going to let you guys decide what we record about.
Yes.
What we talk about on Friday. So we will put up a poll. And then we'll record on Friday, whatever wins. So
absolutely, a little Taboo Tuesday shout out. We're getting everyone involved, and we won't fudge the results. Whatever you pick, we will absolutely talk about. All right, everyone, we will see you in a few days. In the meantime, keep staying home, keep staying healthy, wash your hands, don't be a jabroni, and as always, Black Lives Matter. All right, everyone. Peace.
Later.